Okay, welcome back. This is part two. Better finish this up because it's getting kind of dark. Not much light. So, part one, that was the weekly astrology episode, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the asteroids in this portion of the show. And the first one that I want to point out is the asteroid Didymus. Now, I first became aware of this asteroid back in October, November, where I read something about the DART mission, that they were launching this mission to space to see if they could, basically testing out to see if they could redirect an asteroid by hitting it with not a missile, but a rocket or whatever, spacecraft. And so when I heard about this, I read about it and did a little research. And because I always look at I'm always looking at the names of the missions and the spacecraft. And, if they're targeting a particular asteroid, I want to know what that's all about. Because to me, it seems like there is more of a ritual aspect to this. And, I know some of you might agree with me when I say that NASA is an occult organization. They definitely have their secrets and their rituals, and everything that we hear about has its significance. There is symbolic significance to things. So I've been watching these kind of things for years. So like that's what I do on a Saturday night. So I hear Didymus and I'm like, okay, I don't know. Is that like a Greek, like a mythology, or what the heck is that? So I research it. So Didymus, actually, there's a couple of different references to it, but what interested me was, first of all, the name means twin, or having a twin, a set of twins, let's say. And there is a reference to Thomas, the Apostle Thomas in the Bible. And I'm not really familiar exactly with the book that it's in. I think it's in the Gospel of John, but I'm also pretty sure that there is a reference to it in the Gospel of Thomas, which is an apocryphal book. It's not official canon that the church recognizes, but these are writings from, supposedly attributed to the apostles. And so so it's thought that Thomas, because he is referred to as Thomas Didymus, there has been suggestion that maybe he was Jesus' brother, and that Jesus had a twin brother and Thomas was his brother. But also the story of Didymus is the doubting Thomas, and it refers to being of a dual mind. So when we're looking at the naming of the asteroid, first of all, we're looking at Didymus, meaning twin, right? So there's the asteroid Didymus, but Didymus is a binary object, which means it's dual. So we've got the asteroid, but then we've got a moon that's revolving around the asteroid. So, and the name of the moon is Dimorphos. So the word Dimorphos means having a dual nature, or existing in a dual state. So we're dealing with duality. And so my question was like, okay, when I look at the symbolic meaning of the information that's being put out there. Um, Whether or not you agree with the fact that they're doing it as a ritual, that's what I actually do. I do come from that perspective, but you can also look at it like, as above, so below. There's a symbolic meaning. You can look for symbolic meaning in whatever you want. So, regardless of the perspective, it doesn't matter. I'm looking at it as both ritualistic and a symbolic event. But so my question is then, okay, so what will be the effect, or what could be the purpose and the desired outcome if someone were to it's basically an attack on the asteroid. Not that there's anybody there, but like on the moon of the asteroid. And obviously, I see from a scientific perspective, I understand. They want to see if it's enough force to knock the moon, Didymos's moon, out of orbit, or to see how it affects it. I'm wondering how it'll affect the orbit of Didymos itself, because the two objects have some sort of I don't know if it's gravity or out in space, but there is a sort of pull, and when you have two objects revolving around one another, I'm curious to see what they come up with. And then, yeah, I know there's some of you that don't believe that space even exists at all. Whatever, it doesn't matter. um I'm just looking at the event, and I'm looking at the etymology of the name Didymos, the meaning Dimorphos, Didymos, Dimorphos. So we're looking at twins, dual nature, whether it's the symbology of divine twins or our own dual nature. We can look at it that way, of being human and being spirit, soul. We have a lot of, in mythology, we have a lot of references to twins, pairs, like for instance, Castor and Pollux, where one is God and the other one is mortal. So it is looking at this concept of duality existing in two states. And I also thought it was interesting because around the time that I read this, and it could have been the actual launch date was in November, around November 22nd. And at that point, I looked to see where Didymos was, because I looked it up and I wanted to see if it was an actual, asteroid that I could like plug into a chart and say like, oh, it's at I think it was about 14 degrees of Scorpio at that time. And it looked like an attack. It looked like war. It looked like hidden. It was Scorpio season. And also psychological. There's a psychological element to it because it's Scorpio. But I want to say I might have come across this information on November 11th, because I just remember thinking about the movie Don't Look Up, in Leonardo DiCaprio, and how his birthday is 11/11, and how weird that is, 11/11, and then so I kind of kept it sort of like in my back pocket, on the back burner, wondering what was going to happen, because it wasn't scheduled to actually hit Dimorphos until now. So basically, on Monday, the 26th, their mission was successful and they were able to hit Dimorphos, the moon, and now they're watching to see how the orbit of the moon, Dimorphos, will be affected. But I'm sure they're looking to see, if there's any variations in the orbit of Didymos, the asteroid. So I wanted to look and see where Didymos was in the zodiac. And it actually is moving pretty fast. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Okay. Well, I was researching a little bit about Thomas the Twin, Thomas Didymus, and there were a couple of other figures in history that came up under Didymus. There was a poet or somebody. Oh, there was a Greek mythological hero from Athens. I didn't see that one before, but wait, that's wiki fandom. Is that even accurate? Okay, so there's a music theorist, Didymos. And we have Thomas the Apostle, which was known as Didymus. There was a Hellenistic scholar and grammarian, ecclesiastical writer of Alexandria, music theorist in Alexandria, 4th century, Saint Didymus, 4th century companion of Saint Theodora. Didymus, a member of the house of Theodosius. And Didymus Mutasa, Minister of National Security in Zimbabwe. Oh, and it's also Sir Didymus is a fictional character from the movie Labyrinth. Makes me want to go back and see that for the 10 millionth time. I love that movie. So we're getting this concept of twins. It's a binary asteroid or binary system. It's not just an asteroid. We've got the concept of the asteroid redirection. We've got the movie Don't Look Up. And Leonardo DiCaprio, whose birthday is on 11/11, which is an interesting number for those of us who follow numbers, which a lot of people look at the 11/11 phenomena as being connected to twin flames. And I think that's kind of a murky subject personally, because I think a lot of people have put it in this category of your twin flame is your divine partner, and your mission can only be completed when you find your divine counterpart. So a lot of people, searching for the one and becoming obsessed. From what I could see, a lot of people becoming obsessed and very codependent of, even though this person beats them to a pulp, they're their twin flame. What's going on with that? I have my own 11/11 story that I'll share very briefly here. And so I started seeing 11/11 back in 2008, I think. And I was like, "Whoa, what is this all about?" And all these people are talking about it. What does it mean? So I'm researching, and the thing that comes up is the twin flame journey. I but I really wanted to go back to ancient literature and say, well, what is this? Because there is this concept of twin flame where originally the soul was one and it split off. And now you have these two counterparts looking for one another. And then you have union of the divine pair of masculine and feminine, which is what they call hieros. The it's the wedding of the opposite. But we're talking about spiritual principles and energies. And while, yeah, that can play out where you have spiritual counterparts that come together and they have a mission, spiritual mission, and that happens. I'm really convinced that if we were to have more healthy partnerships between men and women, we would probably be able to heal the world. But the majority of people are not at that point. But you do have a lot of people sort of on this spiritual journey that are, they get into it because of this number prompt, and then they start seeing repeating numbers, and it causes people to question, it causes people to research and look into these things. So I think coming from looking at it from what the spiritual concept is, let's say, of sacred union and divine feminine, divine masculine, and the union of those, it is within ourselves. It is our own masculine and feminine coming into balance, and coming to terms with our own dual nature. We have light and dark. It's all about duality, existing in two separate states, which seem to be in opposition to one another, light and dark, black and white, right? We all have light and dark within ourselves. So it is about balancing our own duality, coming to terms with our own dark side, let's say, or hidden side. It's not evil, negative, it's our shadow, it's what we push down. But I'm wondering what significance this has symbolically with Didymos and the twins, and the dual nature, and wanting to kind of knock one out. That I think that everything in terms of what is shown to the collective, if it comes into our collective consciousness and we're being made aware of it, there's a reason for it. And I'm not saying like, the almighty powers that be, they're all knowing and they're doing this. I think oftentimes things just happen synchronistically. So looking at that from many different perspectives, and also looking at 9/11 and the destruction, where once you had two and now you have one. So if you had two and you take one out, who's that one that's left? Because either you're destroying one or you're integrating the two into one. And I know that particular event did a number on people's psyche, and it woke a lot of people up to what's going on in our reality, how things really work down here. So I thought it interesting that we should see the twin theme again coming up, but this time in outer space. So it also got me to thinking about how we compartmentalize and the suppression of certain things in the psyche, and the splitting of the psyche when it comes to traumatic events, and how certain part of the psyche, or even a split personality disassociation, can get encapsulated into one particular part of the personality that only comes out certain times when it's triggered. Um, and so wondering, like, what does this mean symbolically as a trigger for the psyche? Um, right now I'm sharing my screen for the website Serenu. I want to go and look and see where I think it's in Taurus right now. La, la, la. Oh, no. So wait, is this the day that yeah, no. Okay, so on the 26th, when this object reached its destination to try to bump Dimorphos out of his orbit around Didymos, the actual asteroid Didymos, which is retrograde. No, sorry. Yeah, wait. No, it's not retrograde. I'm looking at Eris. So Didymos was at 5 Taurus, and it's heading towards Albion and Aura and the North Node. Now, Albion's another interesting asteroid here, because Albion, first of all, it's a character. It's the primordial man in William Blake's um, writing, and it's the primordial man made up of four. Well, I kind of related it to the four elements. They call it loas, I think it's referred to the term, but it's four aspects making up the man, Albion. And I haven't read it, so like I just did a little bit of research on what the name meant. But Albion is also the ancient name for Great Britain. And what just happened? We had the Queen pass. We're looking at Charles becoming king, or will he? There's a lot of speculation about that. And so Albion being the ancient name for Great Britain, and the asteroid Didymos is going to astrologically make a conjunction at the same degree of the zodiac 14, 15, 16, and the aura. I just thought that that was very interesting. So I want to see how this affects people. And I would love feedback, because, I mean, could it be as simple as feeling like the psyche is being split, or is it being integrated? Are we stirring up the dual nature? Are we going to see the dichotomy? Because that's, again, another word, that dimorphous dichotomy. We're talking about dualistic terms. So are we going to see more clearly the polarities and the dualism, the hypocrisy? Is it going to be more obvious that you can't stand on both sides of the fence? You have to get on one or the other? Just really wondering. And it makes me wonder about because I have looked quite a bit into um trauma-based programming, or things that, even when it's not deliberate, that cause dissociation, and um how people who possibly have that mental condition, how this would be affected. Okay, so this is another thing that I was looking at. So there's the asteroid Psyche, which is now, because this already happened, the sun was at 3 degrees of Libra on Monday, but by now the sun has reached maybe about 12. So, you know, I do consider that to be, I do consider that asteroid Psyche to be affected. Excuse me. And let's see where Mars is. Okay, so Didymos twins, I looked to Gemini. Gemini's the twins, Castor and Pollux. And Mars is in Gemini. So looking at what that all means, and this is a warhead, kind of like a warhead, a missile, right? We're bombing somebody's moon. I don't know that anybody lives there, but um, um, but is it for show? Is it supposed to be a message? Is it, yeah, we can knock an asteroid off of its orbit, but by the same token, you could alter an asteroid's orbit if you wanted to use it as a projectile weapon. I don't know. I'm just looking at like all the different angles. But back to Albion. Albion is squaring asteroid Union, which I started looking at when I was in the beginning of Mercury retrograde. I've looked at it before, but it's interesting because I've seen some astrologers or readers that talk about the twin flame stuff. I've seen them use asteroid union because in that community, the goal is for the twins to come into union, right? So this whole aspect of union, reunion, there were, there was a lot of focus on unions, and it got me to thinking about the asteroid Union, which is at 12 degrees of Aquarius, and it's squaring Albion, and it's retrograde now, but it's going to go direct on October 9th, and that's the full moon. So, Great Britain, it has its colonial territories, so to speak, like Australia, and there was some comments that came up around the time of the Queen's death about like, you know, aren't we kind of like over this whole monarchy thing? Like, isn't that like kind of ancient? Aren't they like really figureheads? But they're really not. I mean, they'll tell you that the royals don't have any influence. They don't like influence politics, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. But in the structure of the UK, the country, the monarchy is looked upon as more of a religious, it serves more of a religious, spiritual function. Kings and queens were supposed to be the spiritual rulers, whereas you had the political rulers. And I wasn't it how King Henry declared himself the head of they broke away from Catholicism, and he declared himself the leader of the church. So I mean, it does have deep significance for the country and, the people of the UK, obviously. But it got me to thinking about how that kingdom of the UK might want to sort of consolidate. It is the United Kingdom, right? And it has its um, colonial territories, I guess you could say, right? So there's I'm like I suck at geography and I can't even think of like what else is a British territory. I'm so bad. But I know that I did hear comments coming out of Australia saying like, we don't really consider ourselves part of the UK, but yet we are. So I have a feeling that that will come up where maybe Britain will try to, or maybe Charles will try to, you know, rally the forces and try to bring people outside of the UK, like Australia, to, I don't know, to have some sort of sense of solidarity, especially with what's going on in the world. Um, the United Kingdom is pretty huge. So, and there's strength in numbers. So I wondered if, I don't really see Charles being able to unify them. And I don't think he'll be, I really don't think that he will be ruling monarch for very long. We know that William is next in the succession. How they take Charles out, I don't think he's going to want to leave. I think he's gonna not want to go. But really, William is better suited, and I really don't think that that will happen um, until like next year. I think Charles will be around for a little bit, but like I I'm wondering when they're gonna do the coronation for him. Maybe it'll be in that time frame between when Mercury goes direct and before Mars goes retrograde. Maybe when Mars goes retrograde, there will be a struggle and maybe the monarchy would be contested. I don't know. I just feel like maybe maybe the queen had something up her sleeves. Maybe we haven't heard about it yet, but maybe she changed her will or something and decided that we're just going to skip Charles and go straight to William. Because William is definitely up and coming. I would like to look at his chart someday soon. But this whole Didymus thing has got me to thinking of like two separate things: union, bringing things back together that were split from a psychological level, but also from a symbolic level. Looking at the asteroid union, and then because it is square to Uranus and the North Node and Albion, which I'm looking at as a significator of Great Britain. And I just threw aura in there because it's interesting. um, and then how Union at that time or around this week was making a trine to Psyche in Libra. Libra, again, another sign of sort of balancing things. And the moon was in Libra right after the new moon. So we had the new moon on Sunday. Monday, they bombed Didymos. And the moon was conjunct Psyche, trining Union. What else was it affecting? I saw another 11 here too. Sappho. Well, she's a lesbian and she's about like, well, poetry and artistic creative writing, but she is known for also unconventional sexuality and lesbianism. I don't know what that has to do with Dimorphos. Well, yeah. Maybe somebody decides they're tired of living a double life. They're getting a divorce and they're going to move in with their girlfriend. And they're going to live as wife and wife. Who knows? So I just think it'll be interesting to see how all these things play out as we go forward, and also getting into the eclipse, which we have the solar eclipse in October, and then the lunar eclipse in November is conjunct the North Node and Uranus. Looks like a big one because it's also square to Saturn, which, Saturn's tradition and the old guard, but it's also going through Aquarius. It's creating, the new world, while Pluto is destroying the old system in Capricorn, the old guard. I mean, the passing of the queen, that was just huge. Like, you just know, like, that's the end of an era, like a really long era. And things are changing. Things are changing in the way the governments are structured. The balance of power is changing in the world. A lot of things are changing. So Hades is at 13 degrees of Cancer. I don't usually look at aspects between asteroids. I usually look at the asteroids when they're conjunct a planet, when they're being triggered. If they're in a birth chart or if they're being transited, then I'll usually see things come up like, just the general theme of what that asteroid represents in the news, let's say. Like, for instance, Union, well, the asteroid Union, that was coming up. And I wonder, because even though they said, strike was averted, we're they were basically entering into a tentative agreement. We don't know. Like, I haven't checked the news. I think things might shift, but that's kind of the way the energy is right now, with Mars in Gemini, and what we just went through. Mercury's still in Virgo, but all of that Virgo transit. Virgo's a mutable sign. Gemini's a mutable sign. A lot of changes, a lot of flip-flop, a lot of, thought things were one way, and then next thing you know, they're going in a totally other direction. Trying to think if there was anything else that came up that I realized or wanted to talk about regarding Didymos. It just seems that I don't know, like, if they were like signaling, like sending up a signal or sending a message to somebody, either the general public or their adversaries or the Star Warriors or whatever's going on out in space, if there are galactic wars going on. Oh, I know what it was. Made me think of Enki and Enlil, the two brothers, you know? which some people compare to the two names of God in the Old Testament in the Bible. One seemed more loving and the other one seems more severe, right? Enki and Enlil. One enslaved humanity and the other one seemed to be more amiable, kind, or want to like take pity on the human race. Anyway, just making me think of like duality, pairs of opposites. And what is the message? What's the frequency, Kenneth? Well, definitely a symbolic act of war, because Didymos, when it hit Dimorphos, I mean, the DART mission, when it hit Dimorphos, was in Aries. So then that leads us to Mars, which is war and implements of destruction, rockets and the such. And Mars being in Gemini. Gemini's the twins. So it's the war between the twins, the war of the twins, whatever that means to you, whatever that means, symbolically, literally, the war. I mean, I remember before the Mercury retrograde started, I said the Mercury retrograde is going to be linked closely to the Mars retrograde, because Mars is in its shadow during the Mercury retrograde. Mars goes through its shadow period and the degrees that it will be reversing through. So everything that happens right now is important. So being, again, in Gemini, the sign of the twin, how more clear could it be, right? I think we had the nodes in Sag and Gemini during 9/11, and maybe Saturn too. Maybe Saturn and Gemini. I have to go back and look at that. But there is a correlation here. There is some sort of as above, so below thing going on, while there is also an as within, so without thing going on. We have to look at things in terms of opposites and how to reconcile the opposites, because in this heavy polarity that we're in right now in our current, state of affairs, it's this or that, me or you, winner and loser, but we need to integrate. Okay, we're looking at, we could personally be looking at the integration of our own psyche, the physical body, the mental functioning, personality versus the spirit and the soul. And it seems to me that because we come in disconnected from our soul, we're not really aware of our true nature, who's, as a spiritual being. And so perhaps, and I think it's been suggested that our soul doesn't fully inhabit our body, but let's just say we don't fully embody our soul because we don't really know. Our soul is, contains all of the experiences, all of the wisdom, all of the knowledge that we have accumulated, and we can't know everything. So we only know what we need to know. And when we get here, we don't need to know like what happened before we got here, what we were, who we were, how we existed. And I think on some level we do have divine knowledge, but it's something that we have to seek. I think we have to seek what is the nature of our souls. What does it mean to be a spiritual being? Who am I as a soul? I know who I am as a personality, and you spend most of your life getting out of what has been put on you, the labels, the conditioning. We spend most of our life getting past all of that and trying to figure out really who we really are, not who everyone says we are, who says what society says we are, or our parents or our teachers or our friends, or the personality, the mask that we create so that we can get along, or wanting to be liked by other people, don't not wanting other people to see our vulnerable side, the things that we want to hide and the things that we hide from ourselves, the things that we repress and all that stuff. But so maybe there is this sense with the Mars retrograde, now that Mercury retrograde is almost over. Maybe we will see some sort of effect as far as the psyche goes and the splitting of the psyche. I don't know, it just made me also think of like Manchurian Candidate stuff. I can't help it. Like, oh, okay, so what are they gonna do? Are they gonna get rid of the core personality and say, all right, that's it. You're going to operate from your Manchurian, right? Or what would it be like to be one of those people where you don't remember things, or you switch your personality and you do things and then you don't know why you did them? Or there's portions of your life that you're not aware of. Like, how must it be to live in a dissociation like that? What is that like? But what if the altar was eliminated and you could suddenly miraculously integrate? What if the two sides, and all right, I don't know, maybe there's like many multiple personalities, but let's just say for argument's sake, there's two personalities. And the one is the core and the other one is the whatever, the programmed personality or the dissociative personality. And so you're like fighting between light and dark. And what if, like, the core personality chooses light and the program personality is dark, and just by sheer will of the person who is getting in touch with their soul to say, no, I don't want this, I want wholeness, I want integration, what kind of amazing healing would that be? So yeah, these are all my hypotheses. Let's see how they all play out. I like to take a concept and just turn it like a Rubik's cube in my mind and think about all the different possibilities, all the angles, all the ways, all the perspectives, not just my perspective, but the other perspective. Like, what was the intention? What was the desired result? And I do think that there's an element of chaos here, because I know that something like 9/11 had uh, probably, I don't know, an undesired result of a lot of people questioning and waking up to the reality of the world, how things work. So, there is the desired result of the person who takes the action, has the intention. There's the desired result, but then there's the wild card. And I like to think that it's the human psyche and the human soul that is the wild card. So I think we do have the ability to spin things in another direction. So it should be very interesting. And I'll be watching, I'll be observing, I'll be looking to see like what the effects are that I can recognize, point out. So maybe, we'll be talking more about Didymos. Didymos moves pretty fast. I'd like to see what happens when Didymos is conjunct to Albion. That's in, oh, wait a minute. I think it might already be past it. Stop the presses, because I'm still on it was still set to September 26th. So let's look at October 2nd. Where are you, Didymos? Are you out of Taurus already? Oh, God. Yeah, wow. Didymus, you're moving fast. So by tomorrow, Didymus is already into Gemini, which means sometime between Saturday and Sunday, it's going to pass over Albion, the North Node, Uranus, and then by tomorrow night, it'll be into Gemini and hit Phaethon and Admetos. Oh, we're going to have to talk about those. Well, Phaethon is like a car wreck, literal or figurative. But in just a few short days, that means that Didymus is going to be conjunct Mars. When is that? I have to say. God, where are you, Didymus? Oh, I have a feeling everything is going to collide and come to a head right at that full moon. Where are you, Mars? Where are you, Didymus? Yeah, so right about at the full moon, Didymus is going to be conjunct Mars. Mars is at 23 degrees of Gemini. Before that, it'll conjunct Achilles, Altagira, Memoria, Urania, Ascalaphus. Urania is the muse of astrology and astronomy, by the way. Ascalaphus at 9 degrees, 10 degrees of Gemini. Ascalaphus is the snitch. Admetos is a blockage, something that needs to be ended, that is causing deep sadness and depression, as it is known for. But before it goes into Gemini, it's going to conjunct Algol. Wow, that's a lot to pay attention to. You guys should let me know what kind of twinny type stuff is coming up, or splitting or uniting, splitting apart and uniting together, or anything that comes up where, I don't know, somebody have a long lost twin. Are there twins in the building? I know Elvis had a twin that died, I think, at birth, and he thought that his twin was always with him. All right, you guys, that's it. My eyes are crossing. I'm done. And that concludes part 2 of AstroLunaChick's Guide to the Universe. If you're interested in booking your reading, you can reach me at astrolunachick@gmail.com. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook page, and Twitter. And if you send me an email or a direct message, I'll give you my booking information. You can still take advantage of the Mercury Retrograde special, which is $50. It only looks at the Mercury Retrograde and how it's affecting your chart. Or if you want to get a jump on the eclipses, my eclipse special, same thing. And I do that. I could do it over the phone. It's a very short reading. Or I could do it by email. Or I could do a pre-recorded video recording that would be uploaded as a private video to YouTube for you to access whenever you want privately, or you can share the link with other people. So with that said, you all have a great night, and We'll talk soon.